on Wednesday. If they get an appointment next week, if they take treatment, in 3 months they could be undetectable.
In 3 months.
You know, I started off working at Mazzoni probably 10 plus years ago. When I diagnosed someone as positive, their doctor was saying a year and a half to become undetectable. Oftentimes people were suicidal. I had to 302 a young lady when she found out that she was positive because she kept saying she was going to kill herself. Today, that is not the case. A year and a half, now 3 months. Right now we're in a place where if a black male who has sex with another male finds out that he's positive, he can still be healthy in 3 months.
Yeah.
So the work that we're doing is trying to promote this message throughout our community. And the name in and of itself, we picked this name on purpose because we wanted one that had the word unity in it, united, bring us together. You know, the assumption is that the LGBTQ community is, you know, united, that there's this rainbow flag, that everything is happy.
No,
As
not
Gary
even.
described, you go into, I'm not going to say names, you go into X bar, and if the majority of them are white, they may not card you and ask you for 3 pieces of ID, but the climate is going to make you feel like you're not accepted.
Yep.
And part of our training, one of the theories is called preparation for bias. And this is a theory that many of our parents used on us, whether they knew it or not. They said, you know, young black man, young black woman, when you go out into the world, you are going to have to do probably 200% in order to just be acknowledged for 100%. You have to do more. You go into this bar, you're going to be treated differently. Don't let those negative opinions of you then lead you to engage in self-destructive behavior, such as unprotected sex, such as drinking and having sex under the influence. This is what puts people at higher risk for HIV. And I'll tell you something that I've noticed. It's not the person, you know, this might be counterintuitive, it's not the person who has 100, 200 sexual partners that I'm identifying as positive. It's the person that's in a committed relationship. It's the person that says, I trusted him. Just Wednesday I got somebody, that's what he said to me. He had all this information. He knows all the right people. He said, I trusted this person. They told me it's going to be okay. This person told him that he was positive. And they still chose to engage in unprotected sex. And now he is in his late 60s and he's now positive.
So what suggestions would you have? You say you get money from the CDC.
Yeah, CDC.
If you could talk to them and say, have money targeted for this reason and this reason only,
here's what I'll say. And the other program that I want to talk about is called Q-Spot.
Okay.
So Brothers United and our counterpart is called NIA. They focus on heterosexual black men. This program total over 5 years gets about $1.5 million. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but when you factor in staff time, overhead, all this other nonsense, it ends up only being a couple $1,000s that you get to use for your program. You know, this multi-million-dollar program compared to a program that myself and some other young leaders created called Q-Spot does not have funding. This is all through private donations, in-kind donations from Broad Street Ministries that houses us. We've been able to identify the same number of positives as this program that's funded at $1.5 million. And this is according to CDC data, a project called MTI, Men's Testing Initiative, in collaboration with Penn. You know, I'm helping on both ends. So I see both sides. I see the fully funded side and I see the grassroots unfunded side.
They're doing the same thing.
Both venues have about the same seropositivity. And this program called Q-Spot is housed at Broad Street Ministries, and we've created a Young Leaders Council. We've engaged young people to directly address these issues, to address the issues that their peers are feeling. One of the concepts we taught them was social determinants of health. And we trained them, and I had to really drill it into their heads. This is why this program exists. Yes, parties are fun. Yes, social events are fun. But if it's not addressing these factors that are putting your peers at greater risk for HIV, for poverty, for unemployment, for lack of education, there's no point in doing this. And it took them a while, but they finally got it, and each and every of the 14 events that they planned last year, each of them had a theme based on the social determinant of health, poverty, unemployment. They had one that focused on the trans community, that focused on honoring women, that focused on religion. You know, each of these themes, employment, education, this is how you address these issues. You build leaders. You help. It's, you know, I wrote a quote on Facebook that said, you shouldn't judge a leader by how many they can lead, but by how many leaders they create. That is the true mark. How many leaders do you create? How many more young people do you empower to address these issues directly? That's the issue of sustainability. Now these young people, we just had a fundraiser yesterday where last year's Young Leaders Council is raising money for this year's Young Leaders Council. They're raising money for this year's Q-Spot. So we're creating a cycle where next year, the last 2 previous cycles will raise money to keep this program going. We now are fully funded this year. This is all off of private donations, off of these young leaders going out there and learning how to fundraise. They're between the ages of 18 and 29. When we met them, you know, some of them, nobody wanted to work with them. No, they wrote them off as, these are the problem kids. They even acknowledged themselves. They were like, I don't know what you did, but when we came together, we hated each other. This room full of young people, they met 40 sessions, 3 hours a week. That's a lot. That's a lot. Because to get them to show up for my program, 4 sessions was a lot. So I'm on both sides of this, you know, this scale, watching how, you know, you pour millions of dollars into this program for 4 sessions, and we're pouring, you know, I'll be honest, I spent money out of my own pocket to keep this program going. I had people telling me, you're crazy, what are you doing, stop it, you know, wanting to try to sabotage it, and I was determined, I don't care what I have to do to make this program work. And these young leaders, you know, our last event, the season finale, you could see the growth in them, literally. People who, you know, told me from the beginning, I don't like public speaking, other programs kicked them out. This young lady, she's leading the entire program on the stage. She's the MC. A young trans man, you know, he had so many problems with his own identity, feeling like he was empowered. This young man, I mean, he was the person that was responsible for the testing. Because he got on the mic every single event and said, know your status. All of you out there, if you're not going to get tested today, come back the next time. He was the person that helped us to get the testing numbers to identify all these new positives. This year, he's now going to be in charge of security. He's in charge of security at the LGBTQ homeless program. Like, I'm watching each and every single one of them start, you know, at one level and they end at another. And
that is an example of, thank you, Quincy, that's an example of what Diop, and Diop is very clear, and there is documentary evidence of the origin of HIV meant to destroy the black community.
Doing it.
Leonard Horowitz's book called Emerging Viruses documents how Kissinger in the Cold War, that was their thing, to make sure, and the same thing in Africa. Tell the people they're giving them immunizations, and they have the virus in them.
Yes.
And so we already see and so thank you for an example of the program that really is combating that. You could argue that HIV represents colonization by the government to kill. But we're not going to take that line down. We have to continually fight and understand this as an anti-imperial movement among the people that we continually have to organize against. Brother Jabbar, thank you so much for coming to New York.
Thanks for having me.
From New York. You're very welcome. And share with us your experience.
Okay, my name is Jabbar Campbell. I just want to say thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's the first time for me being on a panel like this, discussing stuff and listening to stuff.
You're doing fine.
But so what happened to me is like a month ago, I'm from Crown Heights, Brooklyn. I don't know if anyone knows Crown Heights. I was born in Flatbush, but I now live in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. So if you know Crown Heights, Brooklyn, then you know that we're cramped in there with like the Jews, the blacks, the this, that, Caribbean. We're all just cramped in there, and we try to get along with one another. We do witness like a culture segregation between like the blacks and the Jews. We see that like the Jews would get like certain police treatment other than how the blacks get treated by the cops and stuff like that. Personally, I just encountered an experience with the cops where I got like my home invaded basically by the police, and they gave me like a pretty bad whooping. Like I've survived like 32 years. I'm 32 years right now. I survived 32 years without a mark on my face, and every time I look in the mirror, it's like a scar that reminds me of the encounter that went down. So basically, I decided to make a decision that night and say, let me not swing my fist back at these cops, because I could have taken a couple of shots at these cops, but I was like, maybe my fight will be better, sorted or situated in court, or make an example of this and make an image of this. So here I am, coming to some of these rallies and panels. Well, this is my first panel, but I've been to a couple of rallies, which are like LGBTQ rallies, and I'm one. You can call me an ally to the gay community. Only I don't like labels, but I deal with people on on a friendship level. Your sexual orientation doesn't mean anything to me. I like you, I don't like you. I want to be your friend, or I don't want to be your friend. But yeah, this is very important because one, as a black man, trying to survive and live in a community where we're mistreated by cops, and to be assumed a homosexual and get pummeled for being a homosexual is like a very bad thing. So I feel like I gotta stand up and say something, or tell my story, or raise awareness for this, because it's like doesn't matter if you're heterosexual or homosexual. This the treatment I was subjected to that night, it's just like horrible. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Why did you feel like you were getting pummeled? Because you like, what was it about what they were?
Well, I considered it. Me and my lawyers considered it a hate crime because I've been living at that address for half a year, and one of the things I do, I'm a business owner. I do computer forensics. I do IT work, data recovery, things like that. Anything with technology, basically, I do to make money. One of the things I do too is promote parties and rent my space out for parties. And I've thrown a number of parties since I've been at that address, and having zero conflicts with the cops. And all of a sudden, like someone's throwing a party at my place, and it was a gay party, and they were like flamboyant and cross dressers, and it was pretty exciting, right? But all of a sudden, there's like 20 cops. One cop, I don't know if anybody's seen it on the news. Apparently I've been on I had a lot of news coverage. I'm on all of the local news channels and some national news channels and radios and stuff. But yeah, one of the officers climbed up. I had like surveillance cameras and stuff, in and out. Climbed up and like turned the camera. Like,
wow. I didn't know that you put that camera up there when you first told me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you were able to see him turn.
Yeah, I'm watching that. What is this guy doing? Yeah, so like one of the things like want to raise awareness about in black communities, especially when it comes to dealing with these cops, is we should take a book out of Russia's page. Everyone has a dash cam in Russia. So like everybody should have like one, know your rights, know how to deal with like cops, whether you're being pulled over or stopped or whether you're in your own home, like the Fourth Amendment is supposed to protect you from illegal, unruly search and seizure. Apparently, you can't even be safe in your home now if you don't know your rights. It was brought to my attention that I could have defended myself in the event that I felt like my life was being threatened. It's my home, like you have no right to invade and stuff like that. But I just didn't want to let it escalate with anything, in that regards. So I decided to, pursue them in court and speak up wherever I can.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, the Dr. Montero, he was talking about, rights and stuff, and, I look at it more like privileges, rather than rights. It's the facade of rights, maybe, because look at the Japanese, like the Japanese Americans back in 1942, ask them about rights, how they feel about rights, but it was like completely taken away from them. And I think the same thing could happen to us if we're deemed a threat, if we're deemed what they call a terrorist now. That whole terminology is now is put in place to like just take away your rights and stuff like that. So, there was a question earlier, I forgot by who, but it was basically how we could what can we do to raise awareness in our kids and stuff like that. Basically, we shouldn't put all the blame on parents, but they should do more to make their kids aware. A lot of times you find television raising our kids now, and that's where the signal is being implanted. If you observe these programs that the kids are watching, just so that we pacify them, and that or maybe we're too busy working 2 jobs or trying to raise awareness. We put our kids down to look at Barney and things like that. We should.
There's some toxic stuff out there, as we all know.
And our kids, they know if they knew their rights, if they knew their rights like they knew the sports calendar, we would raise more leaders that way. So I think we should, like, even if people go to church. I'm not a religious person, but we can use these churches like to raise awareness on how to know your rights and stuff like that. In school, they used to teach the Constitution in school. They don't do that anymore.
You mentioned rights and leadership, and Quincy also spoke to building leaders. That's one of the ways we want to come out with this panel with strategies, and I thank you for it shouldn't take a negative influence like this to know that the state really is against us, and the state is run up by the police, and we always have to have our guard up. That doesn't mean be delirious, but be aware and talk to people. Nothing beats that individual conversation, and encourage them about groups that